Hey y'all, Mac here. I took some time and cooked up some Atlas trees for the new PoE League, and some of these are going to be for progression, while others are going to be strictly for currency. And I think that overall, having a sort of diverse set of strategies starting out with is going to give me some options to kind of keep the game fresh. But also, I've kind of designed these strategies to be more fitting for like a mapping oriented build, except for one, which is going to be a destructive play strategy. I'll go over this, and that's going to be more for a bossing build. The overall investment for these strategies are going to be pretty low. At most, you're going to be using maybe a couple cheap scarabs. I don't really see the point of investing really heavy early on, especially when you have a good build that can map very quickly. You can pump out a lot more volume. And then once you have a good base of currency going, as well as a solid build, that's when you can start investing more and maybe putting mechanics into your T17s. All right, let's get it started off with the progression atlas. So the entire goal of this atlas tree is to progress your atlas early on in the league. This is why we'll be using for league start. And it's utilizing several mechanics to just make that progression faster and more streamlined. On top of that, I'm also adding Jun for gearing purposes, but this is not required if you really don't want to do Syndicate. But gearing is going to be a solution, problem you have to find a solution for elsewhere. So the first and foremost thing is you're going to be pathing up towards Kirak. This is the most important first couple nodes to get, so you'll path up towards here and grab Kirak. And from this, you're going to path all the way up to Unwavering Vision. This is going to give you 20 Atlas passive points at the cost of not being able to drop scarabs or modify your maps with scarabs or fragments. And this is going to be really powerful to just give you even more points to work around with early on without having to actually complete the maps for that. And we're going to be using these points to then start speccing into Jun. Now, because multiple masters can now appear in maps at the same time, it's really important that we get Jun and Nico. And the reason why we play Nico, I think a lot of players have already figured out and have seen many, many videos of. There is a node called Pact with Energy. And this is going to give us 60 seconds of time to essentially be really powerful. The biggest change to this in this patch is that it is temporary now. However, I believe it's still really, really strong because you're not really taking too long with these maps, especially with this setup. I think that taking this is honestly worth the points, but if you don't want to take Nico, then you can spec these into more map nodes, specifically these connected map drop nodes, or you can go into things like Essence for gearing purposes. Taking quantity on this will or effect modifier for explicits is also okay. It's kind of your choice at the end of the day if you don't want to play the Nico strategy. Alright, so the second Atlas tree is going to be primarily focused on Ritual. Now, Ritual as a mechanic isn't the most consistent currency making method. It's kind of a hit or miss, to be honest. However, I'm supplementing this with Syrian Exarch as well as Essences. I think this is just a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun farming Ritual last league, and I wanted to see if I could pop off with it this league. Moreover, I have a sort of ideology for why I'm taking these nodes. So you can see I'm taking Essences as well. And how you basically want to play Ritual is you want to kill the map boss in the first Ritual altar. That way it spawns at every subsequent Ritual altar. And this is going to give you a lot more tribute. So in order to efficiently farm this method, you need to have pretty decent boss damage. And if you have pretty decent boss damage, then the Essences shouldn't be too big of a problem either. And so combining these two gives us a good steady flow of currency. If I still need to finish any gearing or upgrade any gear, Essences are going to help with that. Syrian Exarch, I'm picking more for the fact that I'm playing a cold build, and scaling the cold resistances by 80% and overcap by 10 from Eater altars just doesn't sound that fun. I think also there's evasion from Syrian Exarch. It's not going to be super fun, but I think overall there's less downsides that could be really annoying for my build compared to the other side. If you're playing a build that does better with the Eater altars, I would just play that. You can spec this Eldritch Gateway and spec down into Eater, and then kind of take away these explicit points and just path to the Scarabs here. You can also, furthermore, take Chittering Champions if you want. I don't think this actually applies to the Ritual bosses afterwards, so it's just for an extra Scarab, nothing much more than that. If you don't want to run Essence with this setup, you can instead either try and play Bestiary, or you could just do, Smuggler's Caches and just get a little bit of extra currency that way. Alright, next up, this is a Crop Rotation Harvest Atlas strategy, and it is focusing exclusively on harvest and maximizing its yields. Now, if there's a strategy that you're going to take from me in terms of consistency, I'd say this is the best one, bar none. In my experience, I have farmed this strategy to get Mage Bloods almost every league that I've actually gone for one, and it is just insane, like how consistent this is over a larger sample size. Moreover, I think crop rotation is pretty fun. It forces you to kind of stay more engaged in doing harvest as opposed to just clicking, whatever number is higher. And I think that it just adds a lot of fun to a mechanic that's otherwise pretty cut and dry. Now, how we're actually scaling up this mechanic is we're taking a lot of explicit modifier nodes. This is going to make the harvest really scary. So do have a build that's able to, not instantly melt. And if you do, then maybe put a portal in the harvest when you enter it. How you actually play this is you want to do all of your Eater of Worlds altars before you go into your harvest. And that's going to maximize the quantity and rarity, more specifically the quantity of your harvest. More importantly, also, you want to scale pack size wherever you can, and that's going to give you even more yield as pack size does scale the harvests themselves. I think that overall, if you want a currency strategy that is guaranteed, this is the way to go. And moreover, if you want something that can scale, this is also the way to go because you can use imbued harvest scarabs, which are just absolutely insane. You can drop, tens of thousands of life force, multiple divs worth of life force per map if you're like lucky and you get more than four or more plots in your harvest. That being said, you can also lose money on it in the short term, so I wouldn't do imbued harvest unless you have a good base of currency going into it. There is an option for doubling scarabs, which I think are also really lucrative depending on their pricing. The actual base cost of doing this strategy has gone down drastically. Normally, the map device cost would be around 12C per harvest, but with the existence of harvest scarabs, this has gone down to 1 to 4C, which, it's huge because life force is almost always needed, whether or not it's for card gambling, which is why I usually go for yellow juice. All right, next up, this is a Destructive Play Atlas. This is just one that I threw together quickly. I'm not playing a bosser, so I'm not planning to run this strategy, but the entire focus is getting as many map drops as possible, and moreover, you're going to be running exclusively these bosses. So you can either do Synthesis bosses, you can do Conquer bosses, or you can do the Shaper Elder Guardian bosses, but you're going to be running full sets of these in order to run the Imitation to get Maven Splinters. And the Maven Splinters themselves are going to be a decent chunk of your profit, so only do this strategy if the Maven writs are actually selling for decent currency. I think the really important thing is to make sure that you actually look at that before you fully invest into this strategy, because without the Maven Splinters, I don't think the profit's really all that good. So that is a important caveat. Now, the actual strategy itself is really chill. The invitations are usually really chill. All you really have to do is just roll them. That's the only annoying part, in my opinion. But now that you don't actually have to get itemized invitations, you can just get it from Kirak, and it's free. I think it's going to be a really nice strategy to do some bossing if you are more into that. Again, not something that I'm going to really use this league unless I play a bosser, unless my build scales to this point. And moreover, it's going to be determinant on Maven Splinter prices. With this strategy, you're going to be running the Nico tech because the actual time it takes you to get to the bosses should be pretty low. And if you're taking way too long on the bosses, I don't think this strategy is worth it anyways, because you need to roll some pretty nasty invitation modifiers. Alright, so lastly, I will be combining Essences, Expedition, and Exarch Altars to farm a lot of consistent currency, as well as craft gear either for myself or to sell. And I think that having a relatively diverse set of items to sell is going to be really strong just in general. I think that ROG crafting is always underrated in software trade. A lot of people end up just buying their gear, and so I think being able to craft that gear that they will buy or to craft gear for yourself is going to be huge. That obviously is something that you just learn by playing the game, crafting items, and knowing like which bases are going to sell, which bases are going to be like completely worthless and sit in your tab forever. It's going to kind of depend. So I wouldn't play this strategy without Extreme Archaeology. I think this node has made Expedition actually playable. It's going to make the mobs a little bit more scary, especially if you're blowing up stuff that's like not good for your build, so be careful of that. Again, with this strategy, I would say you can pick either Exarch or Eater, depending on what build you're playing. Again, for me, Exarch is just way more reasonable, so I'm playing that. With this, you're also taking some Harbinger nodes, and the Harbinger nodes are just there to give you a small infusion of currency as well as some XP along the way. I think that Harbinger dropping like annulments are going to make crafting a little bit easier, so you don't have to go out and buy that currency, but with the addition of the auction house, that might not be as big of an issue. I think that essences, again, if your build's able to handle some juiced expeditions, it should also be able to handle essences. And essences, again, are just a flat injection of currency per map. Finally, again, Exarch altars aren't... I don't really care about like what you're getting from this. It's just really consistent currency, especially if you're getting Chaos Orbs. The removal of like Awakened Sextants last patch is... It kind of gutted them a little bit, but I think it's still worthwhile. Plus, there's a chance you can get like some pretty good divination cards through Exarch. Anyways, guys, I hope this video was insightful. I hope one of these strategies caught your eye, and I hope that it will help you along your League Start journey. I will say a lot of these strategies are very low investment, and the turnaround is not going to be as high as if you were to invest more. Remember, currency in this game snowballs upon itself, so the more you invest, the more you're going to make out with. I think that a lot of these strategies are scalable, however, so I would definitely look into things like the Harvest or things like Destructive Play if you really want to juice up your currency making. But until next time, ciao.